Hello and welcome to this free immigration support channel. Today we're going to be talking about the form I-129, the petition for a non-immigrant worker. And I decided to make a video about it because recently I had a friend of mine, I've been helping him out to fill this form out together with his employer, and I'll talk a little bit more about the details later. But I decided to make this video to kind of while my memory is fresh about how to work about this form. There's really nothing that complicated about it. The only complicated part about this form is that you have to actually work together with there's another person involved that you're now working with to have this form filled out. It's really the responsibility of your employer to fill out this form, but considering that you are non-immigrant worker and it's really your status is being done for you, obviously it's your responsibility to keep an eye on it and make sure that the process is done correctly, everything is filled out. So let's get into it, and then we will kind of talk more about it as we go. So the website, as always, is uscis.gov. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing crazy there. Let's see. You go to the forms, and the form number, like I already said, is I-129, petition for non-immigrant worker. And unfortunately, there is no way to file it online. Some forms you can actually file online currently with USCIS, but not this one. This one you have to print out, some parts fill out on the computer, some parts fill out by hand, and then actually mail it. So let's start with the actual form. We're going to open it up, and we also going to open up the instructions on the next page, so we have both of those in front of us. I always recommend, before starting filling out the application, to go through the instructions. Now, depending on who you are, the employer or the worker, doesn't really matter, I guess, because you're still finding out the information for yourself. One thing that I wanted to point out in this form is that there are a lot of different statuses associated, and we're gonna talk a little bit about briefly, and I'll give you one specific example, the one that I was recently working with, and it was the O classification, which is for athletes, but there are a lot of them out there. Even the most basic one, the H1B classification, which is the just a regular worker basically, also is a part of this. So there are a lot of them out there. Anyway, let's go briefly through the instructions, and then we'll try to go briefly through the application, and then we'll see. So here are the classifications so that you are familiar approximately with what they are. There is this E2, which is the treaty investor. There's H1B, which is, like I said, the basic specialty occupation worker. It sounds fancy, but really pretty much in most of the situations, whoever you are hiring overseas, if you're an employer or if you're a worker coming and working for a company here, you're gonna have the status H1B. There's also H2A, which is specifically for agricultural workers. There's H2B, which is temporary non-agricultural worker, which is also a very popular one. There's H3, which is a trainee. L1 is a transferee. O1, which is the alien of extraordinary ability in arts, science, education, business, or athletics. Now it's very specific. It's not very common, but for athletes, this is the one. This is the one, and I will give you more details about an athlete and how does that work. O2, we have accompanying alien, basically kind of like a dependent. If you know how you have the F1, for example, a student visa, and then F2 is dependent. very similar. P1, Major League Sports. P1, Internationally Recognized Athletes. Entertainment Group, that's for group. P1S, Essential Support Personnel. So far, so forth. Q1, there's alien coming temporarily to participate in an international cultural exchange program. R1, religious worker. E1, treaty trader. All the E types are for the basically the treaty investors, treaty traders, and so forth. So there are a lot of them. Obviously, like I said, most of the times it's going to be either the H1B or H2B. But still, it's good to kind of figure out and know where you're applying and everything like that. Here is basically your general information who is filing the I-129, and like I said, it is the U.S. employer who is responsible for filing this form. So you're an employer, you're hiring somebody from overseas, you're filing this form. And if you are an international worker and you're coming to the U.S. and you're working with an employer to get your immigration papers straight, you tell them that this is the form that they need to figure out, the I-129. Obviously, if they can afford to hire a lawyer and do it with a lawyer, always, most of the times, better, because they can just walk you through that or just do it for you. But like I always say on this channel, it's good to know what you are doing. Even if you are working with a lawyer, it's good to know what they are doing so that you can take responsibility for things and oversee. Let's see. There is a really small exception. It's recommended that H2A and H2B petitions for workers from countries not listed on the respective eligible countries list be filed separately. So there is a special country eligibility list which we're gonna briefly mention further. Now, the general filing instructions, we have our evidence. You must submit all the required initial evidence, obviously, which we're gonna go through and see what it is. Biometric service appointment for certain beneficiaries who will be working in the CNMI. So for some applications, there will be biometrics appointment scheduled, which is the fingerprinting and taking pictures. Form I-94, sometimes you have it. If you are already here in the United States, obviously you're gonna have the form I-94 because this is what they give you when you arrive to the United States. It's the basically arrival departure record, and it's they used to give it the actual card, the actual paper document attached to your passport, but not anymore. You have to actually pull it electronically, and this is where you can find it, this website right here, cbp.gov I-94. Obviously copies of all the documents, whatever is needed, translations if documents are in foreign. Okay, so filling out the application, obviously make sure you are, honestly I say type it up. Okay, most of the areas you see they are grayed out, you can type them up, right? For example, Mike, you can type them up and then print it out, and then whatever is left that you cannot type up on the computer, then you can write. But I do highly recommend typing it up on the computer instead of writing it by hand, because it just, you avoid a lot of confusion. Complete the basic form, obviously, and any relating supplements. If you need any extra space, complete any item, go to part number 9, answer all questions fully and accurately. If an item is not applicable or the answer is none, type or print not applicable. This is very important. I say it pretty much in every video about application process that I make. Extremely important to fill out, even if middle name is not applicable, you put not applicable if you don't have a middle name. Don't leave it blank. It is very important, because I've seen a lot of cases where USCIS, they send you the application back just so that you can put that not applicable in that blank field. Don't leave any blank field. Okay, so further in the instructions, you will find it goes through each individual section. So if you have, going through an application, if you have specific question about a section, you can find it in the instructions. I'm not gonna go through the whole everything here to save you time. But let's get into the classification and the initial evidence that is required whenever you're, depending on what kind of whatever you're filing for. So, for all classifications, if a beneficiary is seeking a change of status or extension of stay, evidence of maintenance of status must be included with the new petition. Now, this one is very important because the friend that I was helping with this form, he was actually extending his stay. He was not changing status, but he was extending the stay. And there are a few exceptions that cannot file for the extensions. The alien admitted under visa waiver program. So if you're under waiver, you won't be able to do the change of status. Let's see, it's just for the change of status that you're not eligible. And then the in transit, the C type, a crewman, D type, K1, which is a fiance, her dependent, K2, a spouse of a U.S. citizen, the K3, his or her dependent, K4, J1, exchange, basically the work and travel program for students most of the times, and M1, student to an age classification if training received as an. So make sure to go through these exceptions. Very important. You never know, maybe your case is unique. A lot of times they don't apply, but you just want to make sure that you go through all of it. And then obviously whenever you figure out what your category will be, also go obviously through the specific categories here. So for example, the H1B, non-immigrants, right? The big one. You'll write H1B in the classification block, which we will talk about in the application. You will see it. So the petition must be filled by a U.S. employer or U.S. agent and must be filled with. That's what I was saying, that your worker, not the worker, your employer has to fill it out. The evidence that a labor condition application LCA has been certified by the U.S. Department of Labor, and this is something that your employer will have to file directly with U.S. Department of Labor. So this is not just one thing and that's it. Evidence showing that the proposed employment qualifies as a specialty occupation. Because it's a specialty occupation type visa, your employer will have to show to the U.S. Department of Labor that bringing you is an absolute necessity and there isn't someone here that they can hire. So they have to justify bringing a foreign worker, if that makes sense. Evidence showing that the beneficiary has a required degree by submitting either a copy of the beneficiary U.S. bachelor's or higher degree. So that's your stuff that you will be providing to your employer, obviously, probably during the work application process. A copy of a foreign degree, evidence of education, a copy of any required license, a copy of any written contracts between the petitioner and the beneficiaries. So far, so forth. You get the point. All of this information will have to be provided, obviously, to your employer, and then the employer will have to provide it to the U.S. Department of Labor to show them that you are a necessary asset for them, for their company, and they have to bring you. They all have to do it again themselves besides this application. Now, you don't really need to do any of that whenever you're extending the stay. Let's say, for example, if you have already been granted that H1B visa, right? And obviously the US Department of Labor, they have all of that information already from the first application. And now you're just extending your stay in the same type of visa. Obviously, your employer will not have to do all of that all over again. All they need to do is just file this application with a few other documents, like, for example, the contract showing, the employment contract showing that you are going to be working, let's say, for another year and you're extending the stay. Okay, so let's move on. Here, again, there's all this information for H1B. Like I said, because it's the bigger one, most of the information here is on the H1B, H2B, all of this information that's needed to be provided by your employer. Now, let's talk quickly a little bit about the specific example that I wanted to mention here. Is the O1 classification, which is, we can find it here, O1. This one is O1A. Now, this is for those who have extraordinary ability in the sciences, education, business, or athletics. So this is for athletes. Obviously not very common one, but because I wanted to kind of give you a specific example, they would be good. Now, the friend that I was helping, he is a professional athlete, and he is working obviously with his employer, not really an employer, but the manager who brought him here and who is obviously managing all his athletic bouts, right? He is considered, in this case, he's considered the employer. So he was the one filing initially all of the documents for this athlete, showing the U.S. Department of Labor that, okay, this is the athlete, and obviously, you know, it's obviously it's not an engineer or anything like that. You can't really say that, oh yes, there are a lot of engineers here in the United States, and you can, you know, it's an athlete, so pretty much, you know, depending on the sport, unique, right? And of course, if you have a lot of achievements, you know, athletic achievements that you can show behind, obviously it becomes much easier to show to U.S. Department of Labor. So the point that I'm trying to make is, it is a little bit of an easier process whenever you're filing it for athletes, because if the athlete does have a lot of accomplishments that you can show to U.S. Department of Labor, they will have much less questions. It's easier. But still, here's what we're dealing with here. A written consultation from a peer group or a labor management organization with expertise in the field, which could include a person. So for example, if you are, let's say, a boxer, right? A written consultation from a peer group would be a letter from your country's boxing association, right? Showing that all your achievements, they can write it out because they should have the record of that. A copy of any written contracts between the employer and the beneficiary. Again, if you're a boxer, this is where you're going to show the contract of between you and your manager, you know, your boxing contract. An explanation of the nature of the events or activities. Again, this is going to be part of the contract, saying that what the manager is giving you, right? The compensation, the living expenses, how many bouts, you know, if that's a professional boxing, how many bouts a year will you be provided with, and stuff like that. Evidence of the beneficiary's extraordinary abilities, such as receipt of major nationally and internationally recognized awards or prizes for excellence in the field. Documentation of the beneficiary's membership in association in the field with required outstanding achievement. Again, you get the point. This is where all the rewards, all the certificates, everything that shows that you really are that athlete and with great skills, so far, so forth. So you get the point. This is pretty much it. We go through each and every category will have their own certain requirements specifically. So again, concentrate on finding out your specific category to make sure that you can go through and read it and find out. Now, petition only required for an alien in the United States to change status or extend stay. Now, this is for the extension of stay, and like I said in the beginning of this video, this is what I was helping my friend with. Now, written consultation for O and P non-immigrants. Written consultation, certain classification require a written consultation with recognized peer groups. Now, we already talked about that with whoever your, for example, the boxing association would be from your country. Liability for return transportation, and then the filing fee for the form is $460, which should be accompanying the form in the form of a check or the money order. Okay, so when to file? Generally, a Form I-129 petition may not be filed more than 6 months prior to the date of employment is scheduled to begin. So keep that in mind. I would recommend, however, to give it at least 3 months. So don't wait past 3 months in advance, because this is how long this form can take to process, after you file. Where to file? We're gonna go through those addresses I'll show you where to find them. Now, everything else, go through the form again, read it. Let's take a look at the actual application just to see what information is required in there to kind of help you understand. Again, don't leave any blank spaces. Try to fill it out on your computer because you can actually fill everything up. You can save this form and then later finish it, or you can just directly print it and then the signatures, whatever you need to write by hand, you can do that as well. So we got your name, we got your company, organization. You are the employer filling out for your workers, so this is gonna be your information. So employer, your information, employer, company, and then the address, the contact information of the employer, federal employer identification number, which you should have, or if you don't, if you're an individual, then it's going to be your IRS tax number or your social security. So let's get into the main stuff. Information about this petition. Requested non-immigrant classification. This is where you will put the classification. Athlete 1. Specialty worker H-1B, or I think it was H1-B, one of those, H1B basically. And then basis for classification is going to be either new employment or continuation of previously approved employment without change with the same employer. Like I said, it was already approved by the Department of Labor, so there's not much that needs to be done. You're just extending the stay. Change in previously approved employment. Now this one is you change in the previously approved employment, so there's something that changed in something that was already previously employed. New concurrent employment, change of employer. So if you're changing, for example, if you're an athlete and you're changing your manager, that's what's going to happen, change of employer. And amended petition, that is if something needs to be changed. Provide the most recent petition application receipt number. If none, again, don't leave it blank, put none. Requested action, notify the office in part 4 so each beneficiary can obtain a visa or be admitted. Change the status or extend the stay of each beneficiary, amend the stay, extend the status of non-immigrant. Again, this is, you're specifying in this application what this is for. Beneficiary information. Okay, total number of workers included in this petition. How many workers are you getting? So let's say it's just one, like in the case of my friend. So beneficiary information. This is where we are putting you, the worker, the person who is trying to get the visa, the work visa. If an entertainment group, provide a group name. If not applicable, then you make sure to put not applicable. Provide the name of the beneficiary. So let's say John Doe. Actually Doe John, because this is given name, first name, and this is last name. You get the point. Just pay attention when you fill it out. Middle name, if nothing, then not applicable. Keep in mind, very important. Provide all other names the beneficiary has used. So if there were any other names, make sure to mention them. Date of birth, gender, U.S. Social Security, if any, if none, just type in none. Alien registration number, might have already, especially if it is the extension of stay or change of status, you're probably going to have that alien registration number already. Country of birth, province of birth, country of citizenship. If the beneficiary is in the United States already, so in case of extension of stay or the change of status, this is, you're going to definitely be filling this up. Date of last arrival, arrival departure record number, which is the I-94. I showed you where to get it. You can find it in the instructions. Passport or travel document number, passport issue date, expiration date, travel document country of issuance, current non-immigration status, which is a pull down, and you can see there are a lot of options out there. Pretty much all of the visas that are available. Not very computer friendly, but just use your down arrow to kind of go through it. Date status expires. Student and exchange visitor information system is the CVIS. Is basically if you are a student F1 type, you have that CVIS number, but If you don't, then just type in not applicable. Employment authorization document, if you have one, you most likely do if you're extending your stay because you already lived here and you already were able to get that EAD document. And then the address of yours. Processing information. Now, if a beneficiary or beneficiaries named in Part 3, which is we just filled that out, are outside the United States, or a requested extension of state or change of status cannot be granted, state the U.S. consulate or inspection facility you want notified if this petition is approved. So, basically, if you are an employer filing just now for someone who is still outside of the United States, this is the stuff that you're going to need to fill out. And type of office is most likely going to be a consulate in the embassy, right? And then the office address, and then beneficiaries foreign address, so your workers foreign home address, wherever they live. Does each person in this petition have a valid passport? Yes, most likely. Are you filing any other petitions with this one? Let them know. Are you filing any applications for replacement, initial, I-94? Let them know. Are you filing any applications for dependents with this petition? Again, they will just go through all of this information. Make sure to answer that. Don't skip anything. Basic information about the proposed employment and employer. Now, this one is important. What is the job? What kind of job is it? If you do have the LCA or an ETA case number, make sure to put it in there. If you don't, just not applicable. Address where the beneficiary will work, if different from the address Part 1. So if you provided your company address in the Part 1, that's probably going to be the same, but if it's not, then make sure to enter it here. Did you include an itinerary with the petition? Again, itinerary will show exactly what is going to, kind of layout of what's going to happen. Will the beneficiaries work for you off-site at another company or organization location? Will the beneficiaries work exclusively in the Commonwealth of the Northern Marina Islands? Is this a full-time position? Make sure to fill all of this up, about the position, the type of business, the current number of employers, gross annual income, net annual income, and stuff like that. Now, the next is the certification regarding the release of controlled technology or technical data of foreign persons in the United States. This is for certain companies. For certain companies, the license is not required, Department of Commerce, and for some, it is required, so make sure to read through it and select the right one. Now, the last part is the declaration, the signature of the employer here. Last name, first name, title, signature. Obviously, you can fill out signature here on the computer. You'll have to print it out and then sign it by hand. Make sure, don't forget, but everything else, the date, everything you can fill out by hand. If someone filled out this form for you, this is where they will put their information. If nobody did, make sure to fill out not applicable everywhere. Okay. Preparing form other than the petitioner. Again, it's the same thing here. Okay, so additional information. If something you did not have enough space, that's where you're going to fill up. But we are not done yet with this application. There's something very important that we have to go through, because each specific classification has a specific page. So because I'm doing a specific example, we're going to do the O1, which is the athlete, here. So let's find it. This is E1, E2. So this is not for us. Trade agreement supplement, again, it's not for us, specifically for E1, E2. Then we have age classification. So everybody in age status, H1B, H2B, whatever, going to be here. All right. This is what you will be filling out here. And as you can see, it's very specific to that type of category, to the visa category. So we go further, complete the section if you are filing for H2A or H2B classification. Okay, so we are looking for the O, H1B and H1B1 data collection and filing fee exemption supplement. Again, specifically for H1B, keep in mind. L classification, skipping that. O and P. Okay, so this is us. This is O, always for athletes. So let's do it. So name of the petitioner. Now, petitioner is going to be the employer or in this case the manager, someone who is filing for the athlete to come down here, who is going to manage his business, right? So this is going to be the Mr. Manager, the employer. Although it's not really technically an employer, because the athlete is kind of an employer of the manager, because it's the team, right? The athlete is the main guy, and then he has his managing team, but he's in a position to, you know, if he doesn't like that managing team, he can change them. Kind of a little bit of a different situation. But again, for USCIS, for immigration, this is how it looks. Name of the beneficiary, and this is the Mr. Athlete. All right, the total number of beneficiaries, 1 in our case, and then classification sought, which is what we are trying to find, which is a O1A, alien of extraordinary abilities. This is us, or O1B, which is the alien of extraordinary ability in the arts in the motion picture or television specifically. O2, accompanying alien. So for us, it's going to be O1A. So explain the nature of the event. All right, so this is where we specify why are we traveling there. So in this particular case, because we are going there, there is no specific event. It's the managing team that is getting the athlete, signing the athlete. Here you can explain that this is a professional athlete getting signed by a managing team. Describe the duties to be performed. The duties to be performed: participate in professional bouts, so far so forth. If filing for an O2 or P support classification, list dates of the beneficiary prior work experience under the principal O1 or P alien. Does any beneficiary in this petition have ownership interest in the petitioning organization? Explanation, if there is. And does an appropriate labor organization exist for this petition? Again, is there a specific labor organization, for example, for your athletic, whatever you're doing? Is the required consultation or written advisory opinion being submitted with this petition? If yes, then you have to say yes. Now, O1, extraordinary ability. Like I said, because it's an extraordinary ability, you have to show the name of recognized peer labor organization, right? So let's say it's your whoever from your home country, let's say Romania. So Romanian Boxing Association, right? For example, and then their address in Romania, and this is not applicable because this is for motion picture, so all of this is going to be not applicable. Let's see. Complete the section if filing for O or P classification. Continue. Yep. O2. We are not doing that, so not applicable in our case. And then statement by the petitioner. So again, this is again the petitioner that is signing it, not the beneficiary, the petitioner. So the manager in this case. This is going to be Mr. Manager. And their signature and everything. And then we got the Q1. So very important. Again, make sure once you're done with the main part of the application, make sure that you find the part specific to the classification that you're filing for. Very important, because it's easy to miss it, right? Because you think that, okay, done, there's the signature, last thing, and that's it, done. But no, there's actually for each specific category, there is a specific page that you need to fill out. Okay, so we are done with pretty much everything. Let me show you where to file. It's very simple to find on this page on uscis.gov/I-129. You can find where to file, and you can click here, and it will give you specific categories and where you will be filing. So for example, in our case, in my example, O petitions, right? They give you the address where to file. Let's see. So O petition, if you are filing with USPS, let's see, wait. As you can see, there are 2 service centers that you can file to. There's a California service center, and there's also a Vermont service center. and where you're filing depends on where you live, which state you live in, petitioner. So let's say I live in Florida, so I will be filing to California Service Center filings. Okay, so I filed to California. If you live in New York, you will be filing to Vermont. So California, if you're filing with USPS, which I do recommend most of the times, USPS, just file it, send it with USPS. This is where you're going to be, the address where you're going to be sending it, the PO box. If you are sending it with FedEx, UPS, and DHL, this is where you're going to be sending it to. There's also premium processing, which is for a faster processing, expedited processing, and the form I-907. This is a different address, so keep that in mind. And then there's a premium processing email address. Keep that in mind. But most cases, this is where you're going to file. And the same thing for the H1 visas, all other H1B petitions, regular cap, advanced degree exemption, stuff like that. There you go, most of them. Again, there's another one. There's a Nebraska one, Vermont, California, Texas, and Nebraska. So there are 4 service centers. Again, depending on which state you live in is where. So if you live in Florida, you're going to actually file to Vermont Service Center this time if you are filing under the H1B. So pretty straightforward, nothing to it. Like I said, if you are able to work with the lawyer to do that, great. Go ahead, hire a lawyer and do it with them. But make sure to keep your eyes on it. Go through the application, make sure that everything is filled out, just so you know what's going on and that you are in control of the situation. And if you do have any questions, you can drop them in the comments below. If you have any requests for videos, really any kind of topic in immigration, I will be happy to help. Again, let me know in the comments below, and I will try to address them. Thanks for watching. If this was useful, subscribe, because more videos will be coming this way. I'll see you guys in the next video.